Hello one and all, and welcome to Behind the Glass, your weekly automotive podcast hosted by two rather uninformed enthusiasts.
No.
I'm Sam from the YouTube channel Seen Through Glass.
I'm Tony from Gravelwood Car Sales.
And you can watch us each week on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most podcast players. We hope you enjoy the episode. I'm really jet lagged. Dude, I'm tired. Like, I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. I don't feel like my body is connected to my body. I feel like I'm floating outside of it. I'm just a mess. So I'm warning you.
Well, you haven't got to warn me because what you've just described is basically how I feel every day. So your inner or outer feelings now is basically me, mate.
That's just you. That's your life. You're just always outside of yourself.
I'm always like, don't know what's going on.
Have you ever experienced jet lag? Because you've never been outside of Europe, right? Dubai, of course.
Been to Dubai, yeah.
Anything more extreme than that?
Not real jet lag, no.
No. Okay, so this is going to be quite interesting when we go to LA in literally a couple of weeks. It can be quite dramatic, mate.
No, I'll be all right. Machine on.
Well, yeah, I don't tend to get affected by it very much. The reason I'm so jet lagged is last week I was taking part in or completing a top secret project, which I can't explain anything more about. It's all going to become clear very soon.
Even I don't know about it.
You know nothing.
No,
but I will be sharing all the details about it here on the podcast exclusively.
Right.
So plenty of that to come, but not for a while. But it was literally, it was very far away.
Did you have a nice time?
I had a great time. It was very successful. Everything was fantastic. But the journey back...
No, good.
Well, ruined. I had flight cancellations and delays and blah, blah, blah. And that route, because usually with me with jet lag, I'm fine. Like, as I get on the plane, I set my clock to the time of the destination and I'm like, cool, like, off we go. Like, breezy. Like, I'm never that badly affected, but oh my God, because of this disaster journey back, I'm out of it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to string a sentence together today, so you might have to carry this episode. Please tell me you're able to.
There's a thing. I mean, I always have to carry it. But your misfortunes couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke.
Oh, thank you so much. How kind of you. I feel like you're being sarcastic slightly. But. Anyway, whilst I've been away, what have you been up to, mate? What's been going on? Any news, any info?
Can I say that? Yeah, I can.
We've both been up to things that are so secretive we can't talk about them.
No, I can. I got a GT3 Touring. Yeah.
991 or 992?
992. I don't really know what to do with it yet.
But you a stock or you didn't buy it personally?
A bit of both, mate. I don't really know what to do. I originally planned to use it, which I probably will for a bit. But I don't really know because I was driving it back the other day and it didn't really tickle my fancy.
Really? You have driven a 992 GT3 wing car, haven't you? Flat out.
Yeah.
And you enjoyed that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So weird that you found the Touring not so. Maybe it was UK roads or was it bad weather?
I don't know, mate. I just drove it round the M25 a bit and drove it back to work. But it seems a shame because it's a proper car, but I don't really like, I've not gone off Porsche and I've not gone off 911s, but like that 992 variant, you get in them. I mean, literally, mate, you get in the car, you could be in a Carrera S, you could be in a GTS, you could be in a Turbo S, and it just didn't feel. I'm sure it is properly special. I know you love them. But I don't know. Maybe I need to drive it a bit. Maybe I'm being a bit hasty.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, what you would say to me is awful place to drive a GT3. I mean, along the motorway and then to your work. I mean, like, it's going to be noisy and a bit uncomfortable and a bit sort of.
It wasn't noisy, I'm gonna try and talk positively. The positive bit about it is whatever people buy 911s for. It's very understated. It's not got a stupid great big wing on it.
So the Touring, especially, that's what you're talking about.
That's what I'm
talking about. The Touring is, yeah.
It's absolutely very understated. It's very, unless you know, it's like a lot of 911s. Unless you know what it is. But literally, and I'm not just being exaggerating here, you can drive it every single day. No problem. at all. So that's a plus part of it. Maybe I need to use it. Maybe I need to.
Yeah, I would assume, that wasn't a great drive. And then maybe for you, it's too understated. Maybe you just were like, oh, it's just looks like a 992 Carrera S.
And I was going to bring it today, but I bought the Roma instead.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah, and I do like that Roma, but I don't know, mate. I need to drive it. I think I need to go.
Spend some more time with it.
I think I need to drive it, and I'll make a decision on what I do with it. But I mean, it's pretty looking car. I mean,
I think the touring is fantastic. I think the 992 variant isn't as pretty as the previous gen, the 991.2 touring, which was kind of a beautiful 911. The 9 is quite great. That rear diffuser is very aggressive on the touring
and looks a little bit out of place.
Yeah, a little bit out of place. And then I don't like the aero wing, the adapter. The rear wing.
Like the
ducter, the moving rear wing. I don't love that on the touring.
I like the front bonnet. That's very cool.
With the nostrils.
With the nostrils. Yeah. I like that. And obviously the side, they all look the same.
Do you like the fact that it's painted down the bottom of the bumper? Have you noticed that? On the touring, they paint some of the little black bits at the front. That's the difference for GT3 versus GT3 touring. At the front end, at the lower part of the bumper, on the normal wing cars, it's sort of black plastic. But then for the touring, they paint it, so it's body colour.
It's a lovely car. It's GT silver. It's got all the extras. It's got carbon roof, carbon mirrors. Okay, it's a proper bit of kit. It's a lovely car.
I'm assuming black interior.
Black interior, yeah. It's a half and half, isn't it? Half leather, half.
Oh, okay, half. Yes. Okay, yeah. I know what you mean, yeah. Okay, nice.
I mean, everything works. When you compare it to like the Roma or something, it's loads less fiddly. With a Porsche, a button's where a button should be. That's the only.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, that's the only criticism I have with the Roma. But I had a choice today which one to bring, and I bring the Ferrari.
That is telling. And slightly surprises me.
Yeah, it does me because I'm a huge Porsche fan, obviously, but I'm also a huge Ferrari fan as well.
But I think over the last 12 to 18 months, you have steered away from new Porsches slightly. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not putting words in your mouth. That's kind of fair to say.
A couple of reasons for that, but which I'll share on another podcast for sure. But I don't know. I just like ebb and flow.
Sure.
They are Porsche and Ferrari are still my favourite two manufacturers and the go-to cars that I buy, but. Yeah, the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, since I sold my RS, I haven't really and I had that 992 4S, didn't I?
Yeah, you had that for half a minute.
I had that for, that's a lie.
What?
I had that for about 5 months.
Did you?
Yes.
No, you did not.
I did. I bought it in April and sold it in September.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, time flies.
I know.
Actually, we're going to come on to our big topic for today in a second, and for doing that, I had to do some research into what I filmed this year. Yeah. Oh my God, I don't know what's happened to 2022. Has anyone else found this? Let us know in the comment section. I feel like this year compared to most others has just gone like that. It's just disappeared.
But I'll tell you this now, because I'm a little bit older than you. As you get older, mate, you cannot believe how quickly time goes.
It's a percentage of life thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
The longer you've lived, a year is less of your life. So anyway, I mean, but yeah, terrifying. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just getting old. But you mentioned something. You mentioned trying to be positive about the touring, and actually, today's episode, despite my jet lag, is about positivity because I have been aware, definitely recently, we've started to sound like grumpy old men, mate. We come on this podcast, we slag off every car.
Yeah,
we hate everything. Yeah. We say the world's a load of crap.
Yes,
nothing impresses us.
Yeah, very good.
And that is just because of, firstly, the fact that we mob each other up, but secondly, we're too exposed to some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I thought today our main topic would actually be the best cars we've driven this year.
That's boring.
No, because we're not going to agree on them. That's why. Okay. But yeah, we'll just have some positive experiences. So that's what we're going to come on to in a second. But before we get into that, two things I wanted to touch on. Something I did prior to us. Well, anyway, we haven't talked about it yet, so let's talk about it now. My visit to the Mercedes F1 factory. I went with the EQS 53 AMG 4MATIC Plus. What a name. For a really cool event. It was put on by this company called Overclockers UK, who do like race sim seats, like computer seat gaming seats. Anyway, they sent me this invite, would you like to come to the Merc factory? I was like, yes. I didn't even read the email. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And it was as they team up with let me get this right, Mercedes F1 esports team. So it's the sim racing team of Mercedes F1. But for the day, we got a full factory tour and then got to go down to this kind of sim racing hub and race against each other on the
Mercedes
sims.
in Germany?
No. It's based here, dude. So do you know about Motorsport Valley?
No.
So I'm going to go for it 6 out of the 10. I've launched in that. Formula One teams are based in the UK and within a kind of 50 to 100 mile. 50 to 100 mile distance from Silverstone.
Milton Keynes.
So on a sec. So yeah, Milton Keynes Red Bull, Woking McLaren, Mercedes are in Brackley. Force India Aston Martin are moving to Silverstone but have been in somewhere forever. Haas. AlphaTauri in Italy. Who's the other one? Why am I forgetting? There's one more British team. Come on, help me out here. I don't know why I'm looking at you. Williams in Oxford. Yeah. So maybe there's some others. But anyway, so it's a huge thing. Like most of the Formula One teams are based in the UK. So yeah, just in Brackley.
So that's the F1 HQ.
F1 HQ.
Right, it's not Mercedes HQ.
No.
Right, okay,
F1
fine.
HQ,
Right,
separate
okay,
team.
fine.
But it's where they're building, up the road at Brixworth, I think, where they do the power plants, is where they're building the Project One. So they're doing the Project One up the road. But dude, it was super cool. Like quite understated actually when you go past it. It's like next to a Tesco's Extra. So like it's quite understated and then you rock up and there's like a huge sign and it just looks like some boring grey buildings.
So where Lewis gets his meal deals in that Tesco.
Yeah. Picks up a sandwich and some crisps on his way to a meeting. But it is so surprisingly boring in the sense that it's amazing, but like there's 1,000 people there in really like boring white offices, all working to build 2 Formula One cars. And I, as the biggest F1 nerd, was still like, oh my God. Like you cannot understand how many people and how much is going on to build these cars in terms of testing and development. They have these machines that were built to create the machines that were building the machines. You know what I mean? Like the levels of advancements are just unbelievable. 3D printing to do wind tunnel models, and mate, you would have been blown away. I think you would have loved it. Got some amazing insights into Hamilton and Bottas in terms of their feedback and stuff like that. Not much on Russell yet, because obviously he's still fairly new, but I really quizzed all the guys there on driver insight. But no, it was amazing actually, a really, really cool experience. And I think I've done Ferrari, I've done McLaren. This was Mercedes, but the first only, because all the other 2 are tied up with the automotive. This is purely an F1 factory. And
how many people work at McLaren factory? 2?
Well, I could see you. When did you think of that?
3.
You thought about 10 minutes ago, didn't you? Should we touch on that thing that I put in the group the other day about McLaren automotive?
Well, you can if you like. I mean,
so
they're not going to sue us. It's the truth.
They've tried. A friend of mine who's a big McLaren customer said that they went there in May or something like that, and McLaren said at the time they were making 2 cars a day. How many do you think Ferrari make a day? 30? Less.
Oh, 10,000 a year. So work that out.
I can't.
They have a month off.
I can't. What's your maths like?
10,000 a year divided by 11 is about 900 a month, roughly.
27 a day. 27 a day Ferrari do.
There you go.
Compared to 2 from McLaren. Oh, I was just like, well, I'm not surprised, but I mean, what are they actually making there? What are those 2 cars?
So there are 3 people working there.
Yeah, probably. Well, what a disaster. Absolute disaster. Anyway, so that was super cool. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was the launch of the new Ferrari Le Mans car. Did you see that? The 499P?
Yes.
Super pretty.
Saw it.
That's the LMH category. So that's the one that means Ferrari built it all themselves.
It's a hypercar thing.
Yeah, hypercar thing, but not. There's LMDH, which is when you share components. You know, mate, nor do I really. But it's very pretty, I thought. And kind of cool. I'm all for it.
Did you see the NASCAR bloke drive up the wall?
Yes.
Was that quite good?
that was a bit of you, wasn't it?
That's exactly what I would have done, yeah. I'd just launch up the outside up against the wall.
I'm sure you all would have seen this. But yeah, in some race in the US in NASCAR, the guy had 1 lap to try and get higher up the grid, and he just literally launched it around the side of the wall, just bashing himself. It was amazing. Unbelievable. I mean, slight mockery of motorsport, but
Yeah.
Bravo him.
And you know what made me laugh is he's on the borders of cheating or ruining his life at least. And everyone, all the NASCAR drivers, they're all going mad.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's
amazing. That's amazing. Never
That's so
seen anything
NASCAR,
like it.
though.
I know.
That's so NASCAR. That is so pro everything,
Yeah.
but unbelievable. Okay, well, look, let's come on to, as I say, our top of the day. Because we're fast approaching the end of the year, mate. Middle of November now. We've got our big trip to LA coming up, which, by the way, just to touch on. So, firstly, BTG Live might not be happening in America.
Right.
We got screwed over by a couple of venues. I'm not going to name names, but that got a bit tricky. And we're just running out of time now to be able to announce it. So we're, I think, hoping to do at least a meet and greet, like some kind of casual meet and greet. But if we still can find a venue and do it, then we will. But obviously time's running out. But we've got loads lined up. It's going to be a hilarious week. Some of the cars I've arranged for you to drive, it's just unbelievable.
We're going on track.
Wait. Yeah, yes, potential. Okay.
Flat out.
So hold on a sec. You said
Huge crash.
there's genuinely, so a track day on the Saturday that we're there.
Yeah.
And a company that I know said, "Oh, you can borrow this car." It's a full-on Slicks and Wings race car,
Perfect.
like full-on hands, device, everything.
I just go right around the outside of it.
I was texting my friend who's helping to organise some stuff, and he's arranging this track day. And he said, "It's at Willow Springs, iconic racetrack outside of LA."
Loads of runoff. Perfect.
He said, "Arguably the final corner, if you're really quick, let's say in a Senna or something like that, you're 160, 170 miles an hour around there." I was like, "Well, Tony, we're doing 195." Yeah.
You're a flat.
Oh my god, I can't bear it. Anyway, so we've got lots of stuff planned, and that will be great. But before we know it, we're going to be coming towards the end of the year. So I thought we'd take this chance to look back on our years so far
Yeah.
and talk about the best cars we've driven this year, or the cars that we've enjoyed driving the most this year, because we're both spoiled. We've driven a lot of stuff, and I'd actually forgotten a lot of the stuff I'd driven.
Yeah, me too as well. I did actually. You probably drove more Larry stuff than I have, but
Potentially, but the amount of stock you've had coming and going,
yeah,
I would be more interested by some of the stuff you've driven, actually.
Yeah.
So let's just launch into it. I'm sure we've both got a ton of cars to go through. I'll let you start. What's your first car that you think of as one of the best cars you've driven this year?
Well, because you messaged me and asked me to
Think in advance.
which is rarely does that.
Well, I didn't want to put you on the spot. It was quite a tough one to put on the spot.
Yeah. And the first car that come to my head was SF90.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was the first car that comes to my head.
Okay, so why?
Because it's like nothing else, mate. It's so weird because they obviously it's basically supercar money, and you even done it last week in the group chat that you said you'd rather a 296 over an SF90, but they're completely different cars. Like they're really uncomparable. The SF90 is literally like nothing else on the road. It's
in what sense?
I can't speed, obviously. I can't put my finger. It doesn't drive like a normal Ferrari would, but you know it's still a Ferrari. Obviously, it's still got them characteristics. The front end is a little bit odd for a Ferrari. So I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's special because it's like nothing else. It's properly far up. I think it's like the bargain of the century for what it can do. Why people don't buy them still, I do not know, and they're still $100,000 under list. It mind boggles me. Maybe they're just too fast. Maybe just people think they're just too fast. It's too much.
Well, this is the thing, right? So I'll counter that argument with, for example, 296, which actually is the first car on my list, so we might as well launch into it. Because actually, interior-wise, they're very similar.
Very similar.
So when you sit in an SF90 or 296, it's hard to really tell the differences. And even the size of the SF90, it's a small car. It's a little car. It's not like a LaFerrari or an Enzo. And I know it's not an F car. It's not a proper special car. But I don't think climbing into it feels inherently special. No. Static, stationary, parked on the side of the road. I think you get into it, you go like, okay, this is all like literally the same as 296 or even Roma in some elements. Now, plodding around at slow speeds when you're floating in the hybrid mode and blah, 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 again, very similar to the 296 experience. So when you start pushing on, of course, the SF90 not only four-wheel drive, but 200 horsepower more than 296, different powertrain, like very different beasts at that point.
It does drive differently as well, mate.
Well, I'm certain it must do with the way that it deploys its power, but also with the forward drive system. Like that's so unusual for a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things for Ferrari is the squirm.
Well, it still does that.
Well, yes, but in a different way.
Yeah,
It's not a traditional Ferrari squirm, I don't think.
No, it's not.
And therefore, to really see how special that car is, as we did with Mille Miglia, following it around, you've got to be doing, and excuse the French, twat speeds. You know, you've really got to be cracking on.
Yeah.
Which, okay, look, we're realistic on this podcast, but fundamentally, you shouldn't be doing on public roads. Let's not pretend for 2 seconds that we are all absolutely within the strictest restrictions of all public roads. But
you can do it in all supercars, mate. You break the speed limit in
half a second.
3 seconds.
Yeah. So you know, but at the same time, it's a lot. And my issue with SF90 is obviously it was positioned as baby laugh, babe junior hypercar, like you just said. What a bargain! Oh my god, like, that's unbelievable. But I'm like, when I'm in it or around it, I'm like, is this a 296 with four-wheel drive and a lot more power? Like, I don't get this. I don't get the special. It doesn't equate to me. Like, I love the way it looks. I love the way it looks, but it doesn't make me go like, I would have the 296 because I got rear-wheel drive liveliness. Okay, the looks, actually, I probably prefer the SF90 looks, but you're saving the money. You've got, the power is the same. 800 horsepower to compare to 1,000. It's the same stupid crap. But you're getting all the benefits of the hybrid systems. So you're getting everything that's good about SF90.
But they do drive completely different. They don't drive the same, mate. They drive the 296 doesn't squat down and piss off like the SF90.
Veyron.
Yeah,
which is what SF90 does, right?
Yeah. The SF, it's like a loads faster Turbo S, because that's what a Turbo S, I've said it before, a Turbo S squats down and then sods off. The SF90 does that. The 296 doesn't do that. The 296 wag its tail a bit more. The SF90 does wag its tail, but it sorts itself out because it just does.
But then are you not essentially in a Ferrari badged Tesla? If you're just talking about launching it in a straight line all the time, straight line speed, like
it goes around corners as well, mate.
No, but do you prefer the way it goes round corners to an equivalent? I mean, for example, your favourite Pista versus SF90.
I don't like the front end on the SF90.
Okay.
I don't like it because, like I said to you at the start, it's not normal Ferrari. You compare it to 296, you compare it to a Pista. It's not the same. It's not that direct. It hasn't got that same feel. It's a bit of a dead feeling in the front end. That would be my only criticism. But when you get over that, and you just drive it differently, when you get over that, and you realise exactly what you're in and what it is, one, it's not comparable to you can see the price difference. If you drive them both back to back, you can see the level in price difference. And like I said earlier on in the year, I honestly think it's like the bargain of the century. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's a really weird one. I can't get behind it. As much as I love the way it looks, for me, it's one of the most unemotive modern Ferraris.
Yeah, and
it leaves me a bit cold.
A lot of people would think the same because they've all voted with their feet and they've had them and they've come out of them for whatever reason. We never really know the reason why, but a lot of delivery mileage ones have come up. You know, they either don't use them or they think they're too much money, or initially they thought they were going to, you know, they were £500,000 and they were going to be 600 or 700 grand, and now they're 400, and they probably thought, well, I've just come out. But I think they will find their feet, them cars. Yeah. I think, you know, when more people drive them, I think maybe the biggest problem is they're just too fast.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just too much, and it really reminds me of 720S, where it's too capable, and therefore if a car is too good at too many things, sometimes it can leave you wanting. Do you know what I mean? Like if it covers such a broad, I mean, apart from interior space, luggage space, SF90 has none. The rest of that, I mean, it does everything else fantastically, you know, slow speed, all of that stuff, hybrid, all that, blah, blah, blah. But therefore, I'm a bit like, well, you know, on a day-to-day level, actually, which is a
296 is definitely more than adequate for sure. Like if you want a supercar, it's more than adequate. But if you've had a 296 and you've had a Pista and you've had all of them, I mean, You've got to keep buying something.
Yeah. Apparently you do. No. I say good looking car, definitely good looking car. And if you sent me a list of like, here's a collection, do you want to come and film it? And you got an SF90, it's always going to make me go, oh, cool. Like, you know what I mean? So it definitely holds some kind of presence. But yeah, just I'm not with you. It was actually probably one of my disappointments of the year. Hoping to make some content with an SF90 soon. But yeah, anyway. So 296 I already mentioned. Love 296. I was going to lean towards GTS over GTB just because why not? I mean, if you can put a roof down, like why not? Like it just aids it. But because we just kind of talked about that in comparison to SF90, let me move on to an old car now, but a winner. 812 GTS.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of experiences, stock cars and tuned cars, that Novatec exhaust GTS at the start of the year. Oh my God. And it's just, for me, that is Ferrari. You know, like the noise of that V12, it's elegant, it's super comfortable, it's quick enough on a twisty road. Is it a car that implores you to throw it around a mountain road? No, probably not.
But it is more capable than you think, mate.
Way more capable than you think.
It can do that.
Absolutely. Heck, I remember at the initial Superfast launch, Paul and I took it around track at Fiorano, and it was, you know, it's definitely a capable bit of kit. I know.
Slowly.
Yeah, slowly. About 10 miles an hour.
Especially Paul.
Paul nearly binned it off into the wall on the bridge at Fiorano.
Of course he did, yeah. He loves it.
But no. So I just love that car. For me, that is way more Ferrari than SF90 and way more exhilarating and square. And even though now it's a bit of an old in inverted commas, every time I've got in one, I'm like, this is just so good, this car.
But that's where Ferrari have been, mate. That's old Ferrari.
Fair.
SF90 is where they're going. It's
new era.
It's a new era.
Yeah.
And when you look at a 296, that's completely different to a 488 or a 458 or even that 812. I mean that old era of car, that's gone now.
Yeah.
We're on a new era now.
Got to move on.
So yeah, we've got to move on.
Okay, so what's next on your list, sir?
I had to be in there. 992 GT3 PDK.
Oh. Wait, what are you going to say next? RS? 992 GT3, the one that you drove on the trip with the lads. Yeah, I mean, it's just so good. Because
you just for the money, you just cannot get a better sports car. Full stop. It's just mega. It's just what you expect from a Porsche GT car.
Yeah. I didn't even ask. Is the touring you've got in PDK or manual?
PDK.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because, clever of Porsche to offer both wing and touring car with PDK or manual.
Yeah.
And there's obviously like this whole debate, and I've gone about it for hours and ages, and there's almost like a sort of social media pressure for some people to like save the manuals, real drivers get manuals. Like it comes down to what you prefer.
Absolutely.
And obviously you definitely prefer PDK.
Yeah.
And I prefer manual, but
it's better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just better.
But interesting that you loved that PDK experience so much, or just that GT3 experience so much, because I sort of thought, well, I think up until that point you'd been a bit hesitant. You was like, it'll just be a slightly better GT3. Like you weren't that excited, I don't think, about getting behind the wheel of a 992.
No, it's just a proper car, mate. It's like all the other 911 GT3 cars, GT3 RSs. They do what they say they'll say on the tin, and actually. And we've said this before, that going forward, I think that 992 will be a better car, 100% for the road than the new RS that's coming.
Yeah, oh my God.
To use as well, because that new RS is just going to be stupid.
Interesting there that you've got the GT3 in there on your list, but then you're finding the touring a little bit, leaving you a bit cold.
I know, mate, and yes, I know, but. Maybe it's because it was a wing. Maybe it's because I was in Spain and I was driving it flat out and lovely roads. And, like I said, maybe I need to give this a bit of a chance. And I have said before as well that as much as I like the Roma, if I had to choose between that and a Turbo S, I'd probably have a Turbo S. Yeah. But now, when I've been given the opportunity to come here in a Touring or a Roma, I've come in the Roma. So that's contradictory as well.
You're a mess.
I'm a huge mess.
Like you said at the beginning, you're just living life outside your own body.
That's what I do.
You haven't got a clue what you're doing. Yeah.
It's just, I know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm all over the place. I don't know what's going on.
We've all known that for ages.
Yeah.
So you spoke of obviously driving the car in Spain. So I've got this bit of a dilemma on myself now with my car arriving. Now it's been delayed and it's looking like December. is where I go for like my first drive video, because initially I did want to go down to Spain or Portugal or something like that, but for reasons that will become clear later, I can't really travel internationally from kind of early to mid-December. I've got too many projects going on, too much stuff happening back to back, which just means that I just don't have the window to do international. I could probably get away with like a day and a half to Wales or maybe Scotland. And then I'm like, in December, it's going to be pissing with rain.
Oh, mate.
Freezing cold. So I'm like, I'm in this real, like, I don't know what to do, because I want this epic first drive experience and video. And Spain and Portugal are still calling. I think Joe Achilles is down in Portugal at the moment with the Porsche UK touring, and uploaded some great photos. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I should or need to be doing. I just don't have the window. And so I'm like freaking out, like, well, then do I just wait? Do I do the collection video and then just wait until I've got the time, which will be February at the earliest?
I'll just cancel the car.
Yeah. I can't do the first drive, so I'll cancel it. I mean, I'm selling it straight afterwards anyway. So. Don't worry, Russell's going to be... Russell, who works at Porsche Guildford, who's the legend, who's been helping me with my car.
Flapping?
Yeah, we'll be sending me texting, I hope you're joking.
Yeah. When you see the spec of it, you won't be selling it, that's for sure. I want it.
So yeah, I'm really like, I'm sort of slightly flapping about like, what do I do for my first... I know it's going to have to be a Wales, I think, most realistically, and just fingers crossed.
30 mile an hour.
Yeah, I mean, if fingers crossed, it's just not awful weather.
On semi-slicks in the wet. I mean,
I'm putting the P0s on though. I'm definitely doing that, like straight away, putting the P0s on.
It won't drive the same, mate.
In a good way. I mean, like that's why I'm putting the P0s on.
Well, I mean, what have you got it for then? Why don't you just buy GTS,
mate? Now you're going too far.
No, because
tires make a difference. They don't change the engine, chassis, suspension.
Change the car, mate.
They
make it completely different car characteristics.
No, come on, you're now being extreme.
No,
you're being extreme.
What holds the car to the road?
Yes,
right.
But my GT3 Wing versus GT3 Touring experience, the minute I got in the Touring, which had the P0s on, I went, this is the car that I fell in love with. This is the car that I want. Oh my God, I adore it. It just makes, firstly, the tram lining less. Because that 992 does do tram lining.
You sure it had P0s on it?
Yep. P0 Corsas.
Right.
P0 Corsas.
Right, but that's still a semi-slick tyre.
Yeah, P0 Corsas. Sorry, I should have added the Corsa bit. Fine.
Right, because P0s are a normal...
Yeah, of course. Which are on the turbo. You can get the turbo tyres, which is what Spike at Spike's Car Radio has done. So you could put the turbo tyres on, which for the winter I'd be tempted to. But sorry, I meant P0 Corsas. Is what I meant.
Well, that's what you've got on your car, not Michelin's.
So it obviously gets delivered with Cup 2s, but I don't want them. Get rid of them. Because you get... The tram lining is insane on a 992 front end. It is insane. The front end is too twitchy. And the ride is just harder because it has that harder sidewall.
You do realise that a P0 Corsa is the equivalent to a Cup 2 tyre.
Yes, but it's got a softer sidewall, which makes it easier to warm up and softer and more compliant on a UK road.
Yeah, but it's not a huge difference. I mean, there might be a tiny difference. But
you just said, oh my God, transform the car. It is enough of a difference that when I drove them back to back, it did change the way the car behaved on UK roads.
Oh, you're going to ruin it.
You're
going to absolutely
Firstly, they are certified by Porsche for use on the GT3. So
N-rated tyres, you mean?
Yes. So they are 100% absolutely fine. Secondly, I have driven a car with these tyres, and there are 1,000 forums and 1,000 GT3 owners who have made the same change and say it's better.
And you listen to forums, do you?
Yes, they're owners of the cars, not you, who's driven it once in Spain and thought it was amazing. I'm not going to track this car.
Everyone thinks it's amazing.
I'm barely going to track this car. I'll take it like once, maybe twice, because it's a GT3. I'm going to be using this car for adventures on the road through Europe and around the world. I want it to be a fantastic road car. In my mind, from experience and from speaking to previous owners who've done the thing, switching to the P0s makes it a better road car.
Right. Oh, you're making a huge mistake.
You're so wrong. No, you're so wrong. All right, well, you're so naive.
I know what's going to happen. You're going to get into January and go, oh, I'm going to put them tyres back.
No, because Everything I've got uses Pirellis. I love Pirellis. I know a lot of people say, Michelin could be better, but I'm very happy with the Pirelli
Michelin
tyre. I'm sure in certain situations they are.
So they sponsor this show, they're better.
Yeah. It's also about feel. It's not always about actual performance. It depends what situations you're using the tyres.
Why have you bought a GT car, mate?
For the engine. Because the world's going away, and I want an engine that revs to 9,000 RPM, is naturally aspirated, and
but
feels
if you
fantastic.
wanted it for an engine, why didn't you get the previous gen one with the proper filters on it? I mean, this one sounds terrible.
Are you mad? It sounds amazing.
It doesn't
it's one
sound
of the
anywhere near
best sounding OPF filtered cars in the world.
Now, yeah, but you can get a pre one which sounds even better.
Yeah, but the money makes no difference, mate. I mean, like the money for an old one is the same as the money I'm paying for a new one. Why wouldn't you get the new one?
You're paying list.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So there you go.
But if you're just buying it for the noise...
I'm not buying it for the noise. I'm buying it for
you just said.
No, the engine. The engine. Everything
That's
goes
the
with
noise.
it. No, it's also the performance, power delivery. It's everything. The engine's everything. But also the feeling, the suspension, the road setup, what it is. I'm not buying it just to, I've got to set a lap record around Brands Hatch. I'm going to lunge all my mates. I'm buying it for the on-the-road driving experience.
Right. I think you're going to sell that car in 3 weeks, mate. I don't think that car's for you. I think you're just going to end up buying a Carrera T. Because that's you. That's
I would love a Carrera T.
Yeah, that's good. That's wasted
T.
on you.
But it's got the wrong engine. I don't love that turbo engine.
Disaster.
Every time I've driven a GT3, I've absolutely adored it and loved it, and I'm so excited for mine. And we know that we disagree on how we drive, how we drive cars, especially GT3s. And you can have your roll cage. Oh, I'm giving away quite a lot now. Anyway, let's move on. Just giving you guys a bit of an exclusive. But anyway, hopefully none of you picked up on it. I'm going to stop talking about it. So my next shout, I have to include it, Chiron Supersport.
Okay.
Because, I mean, firstly,
I can't argue with that.
I mean, what a moment. What a freaking cool thing. And it's still my pinnacle. And actually, I was so pleased with the experience because it was everything I wanted it to be and more. I would still love Bugatti if you're listening. I would still love to spend some proper time in a Chiron.
Obviously, and me.
But they're basically gone now, right? Like it's not a thing anymore. It's going to be replaced with their new hybrid and their EV and all that kind of crap. Just let me do like what's called send-off piece. What's it called? A piece de la resistance? No. You know what I'm saying? There's the jet lag. Anyway, I want to do a send-off piece, an emotional send-off to the Chiron, to that incredible engine, and do like a road trip in a Chiron. Come on, guys. I mean, they don't have press cars. That's a problem.
Of course they don't.
Hey, what about listeners? Any of you out there got a Chiron that you're willing to let... No, let's not involve Tony. Willing to let me take on an epic 3-day road trip somewhere in Europe or the US, actually anywhere in the world. I will fly to the Chiron. You shouldn't be involved because people won't do it if you're involved.
How much are they?
The Chirons?
2 million quid.
3 mil, yeah. It's all right, isn't it? I'll speak to my insurance.
Speak to your daddy, just buy you one.
I don't know if you're going to get involved in that. Have you come round to the Chiron a bit more?
No, mate, it's an incredible bit of kit. I mean, I don't... It just... Them hypercar things, they just don't really appeal to me. I only like stuff that I can use, and actually, as the years have gone by...
Can't use an SF90.
Well, you can. As the years have gone by, like, I've become less and less interested in cars in general. Like, I've been exposed to them forever. I've always liked them as a kid. Yeah, I am a petrol head, and I still like certain cars. And it's why I always go in on old cars, because I just do not have the tolerance. And even modern cars now, I'm starting to get the hump with them.
Yeah, I mean, in general, you're a grumpy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot that's got to please me, like...
And I think over the years, especially on this podcast, you like less. It's hard to get much positivity out of you.
Yeah, but that's the spoiled part, mate. Without sounding big-headed, I've had all the cars I've ever wanted. Everything I've ever wanted, I've managed to own. So you become less happy,
become blasé.
Become loads more blasé. Like when I picked the Touring up the other day, a friend of mine messaged me and he was like desperate to come, and he's like, "Oh, I bet you love it," and like, I'm not interested. Like, I'm not interested.
That's a shame.
It is a real shame.
I really hope LA will help reinvigorate some of your car passion. Because with me, I'm definitely blasé to certain cars, but I feel I get more excited and passionate as the years go on. As in, like, I get more excited by niche cars. Don't get me wrong. Like, if a Huracan's outside, I just go, oh, there's a Huracan. Like, and when I was staying at the Peninsula in Paris, there were 2 Chirons outside, and I literally went, oh, cool, 2 Chirons.
Not interested.
Well, like 5 years ago, I would have freaked out and took 1,000 photos.
Yeah,
so like,
you'd have chased it down the road.
but I'm still like, I still get a bit of a buzz. And somebody put on, I did an Instagram Q&A the other day, and someone said, what's been the car you've been most excited to film or drive recently? And I was going back through my Instagram to kind of remind myself. And I was like, to be fair, every single one, like even that EQS AMG, I was super buzzed and excited to like get in it and experience it.
Yeah.
So we're different that. And I hope the California car culture will impress you, and the cars, as I said, that got lined up, which you will not have experienced before, might get you buzzed.
Well, the
again.
American cars are just piles of shit, so I'm not going to be very nice about them. Like that is, I mean, they're definitely not going to impress me because they're worse than European cars. I know because I can't remember how many Mustangs I've sold, and I'd rather walk.
But you know there are better American cars than a Mustang.
Oh, absolutely, but you know, for this, I mean, in general, the European equivalent is better than the American version of the European equivalent.
Sure.
And sometimes I poo. Another thing is, mate, I know you get a little bit more excited than me, but I am 10 years ahead of you. So,
Sure, fair enough.
You know, my saturation of being around all these cars for 40 years, it does just wear off a little bit. Listen, there are still certain stuff that excite me. I've got a real thing for Black Series at the moment, for AMG Black Series, and I'd love one of them. And I think that there's certain cars that would really still suit me. I'm really excited for the 296.
Cool.
Because I want to take it on a trip.
Sure.
And, you know, there are still certain cars that excite me, and there are some, it's really rare, but there are some older stuff that
Pagodas
does excite me as well. You know, like the CLK 63 Blacks.
Enzo.
There's just not many, mate.
Sure.
I've changed. Sorry.
Okay, so then what's next on your list? Because we're trying to stay positive. We've done the GT3. We've done the SF90. What else have you got that you love?
Well,
this
this is imminently going to be a pile of poo.
Oh no! Just remember positivity.
But
positivity.
as we speak right now, it's one of the best SUVs I've ever driven, the new Range Rover.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I had Range Rover Sport, so let's combine them.
Yeah.
Because I had the experience of driving them back to back. So new Range Rover, do you remember which one you...
It was the P440 or the 400 or whatever it was.
Okay. And you loved it?
Loved it.
Because it is just a better Range Rover, right? Did you find it revolutionary? As in, did you not just find it an updated Range Rover?
It was just an update. It did drive better, but fundamentally is still a Range Rover, and I've said that before. But like I've also said before, there is a really nice warm feeling that goes down your back when you're in a Range Rover.
When you step inside.
When you step inside, and that new one is just lovely. It really is a lovely place to sit, and you can waft around in it, and, you know, it makes you feel a little bit more special about yourself in general. So I don't think people are going to say that in 2 years' time.
Why not?
Well, because they're going to break, aren't they? And people are going to get the ump. And
I hope not.
No, I hope not as well. But it's just what happens, unfortunately.
Are you hearing about issues yet? Because with Defender, it was from day one that issues. You're hearing issues already?
Yep.
Electrical issues with the Range Rover?
Yeah, just
electrical stuff. Screens turning off and warnings. So I always have, I lean towards the Sport. I actually don't love the looks of the new Sport. I think it's very spec dependent. Weirdly, I think sort of mafiosi, black on black on black new Range Rover Sports look great.
Stealth car.
Like the colours, I think that back is just, there's just too much metal going on.
Too much going on, yeah.
Too much going on. The new Range Rover, though, I also don't like the back. I don't like those lights. I'm not.
I think the big Range Rover actually looks better than the Sport.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
But as a driving experience, I drove hybrid variants of both, and I loved that Range Rover Sport hybrid. I thought it was unbelievable and gave you the same special feeling, the same, you know, but also like just usable. Do you mean like it's not like a Urus or help me out, a DBX or a Cullinan? Like,
doesn't need to be.
It's just fantastic in a way that you just go, right, that's it. Car's great. It will just do everything I need to do. It doesn't. It's not high horses. You just. It's a Range Rover.
Yeah.
And that's where they hit the nail on the head so well. And I think if I was a richer man, I'd have a Range Rover Sport Hybrid coming. But they are a lot of money. And
I've been offered a few of them.
Oh, have you?
Cannot believe there was I think it was last week or the week before. I was offered 4 or 5 in a week.
Wow, they got a big problem with it, don't they, Land Rover? I think they're following the Porsche model, trying to get customers to agree not to sell them on, which is
6 months.
That's tough to sell, tough to achieve. But yeah, I mean, it's too much money for me right now. But I just think they're fantastic. For me, big Range Rover is just a bit too big, so don't love the back. I just don't need all that space and that size, especially in London. But the Sport's great. But they've done a great job.
Yeah, they've done a good job.
You know, because they've just made it better and made you sort of want one again and look past the issues. Okay, so from wafty, great, comfortable SUVs, I'll flip it to the other end of the spectrum. And these are 2 cars I want to talk about in the same breath. Huracan STO and Vantage F1 Edition. Because I drove these basically within a week or 10 days of each other.
Well, they're not the same at all.
No, but you've got Huracan STO, which I adored, but we said at the time, and I still remember, it's the most pointless car ever. But fantastic because of it, and just stupid, and just brilliant, and
would you have a Black Series over an STO?
I would have an STO because it's more flair and flamboyant, and I like that because of the noise, because of the drama. I'm not a Lambo guy, but it's pure theatre. Black Series, I think, is an unbelievable car, but for me, it's Black Series 2 RS, or Evo, and what else is in that? Maybe Evo's out on itself. But I would compare the 2 RS to the Black Series, which is amazing for the 2 RS.
Evo's 488 or 296.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just got more emotion. It's just got more emotion. Those other 2 are very focused and very done, and not too much about being silly. It's just about.
So's an STO.
STO feels sillier though. Yeah, it feels sillier.
But that's what they do. That STO, that's what it competes with the Black Series.
Of course. But I'd say amazing for the 2 RS because when did that car come out? 2018. Still, I would still put
it's
it
still
in
up there. Yeah.
So yeah, STO love Vantage F1. Okay, it's not in the same breath at all, but it's obviously of a similar ilk of like a hardcore version of the thing. But reason I include it is a car that surprised me. That's why I'm including it. Because I've moved on from Vantage. I loved it in 2018 when it launched. I thought, what a great big hit. But then everyone who's owned them said that after 3 weeks you get bored and it's just a C63 and they fall apart.
Yeah.
So I was just a bit like, whatever.
Yeah.
So when the Vantage F1 came, I went, what's the point of this? It's got a wing and whatever. I loved that car.
Yeah,
and I loved it more than the V12 Vantage.
Right.
I genuinely, if I had a pick of the Vantage lineup, and actually if I was a big money man, I'd get a Vantage F1. I thought it was a properly cool car, and thrashing it from Silverstone at the end of the Grand Prix back home, twisty roads the whole way, avoiding the motorway.
Loved it.
One of the best drives I've had all year.
Yeah.
Sun was setting. Gorgeous car.
Yeah. Well, the next car I'm going to pick as well surprised me.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect segue.
And it's a load cheaper than what we've been talking about over the last
that helps.
45 minutes. It's the new BMW 240i.
Oh, interesting.
I was really surprised. It's a proper grown-up, proper bit of kit now, that car. I was talking to Paul Wallace about it the other day, and I said, mate, I would hands down 110% have one of these over a Golf R or or the S3 or.
Because that's interesting. Because when you had the M140i, whenever that came out, the hatchback,
135.
Sorry, it was at the 135. I liked the look of it, and I liked the idea of it. I kept saying to you, like, and you were like, "It's fine, mate. It's just a BMW." Like, you were pretty
It's a bit like the new S3 and the A35s. They're all the same. They're a bit, but because it's got a 6-cylinder and it's a coupe, and the 240 has got a bit more character.
Have you still got one in stock?
Yeah.
Do you?
One. Yeah.
Can I come film it next week?
Of course you can, yeah.
Yeah? Maybe I'll come film it next week. That'd be good.
It's a real, like, it really surprised me. Like, I mean, they are a few quid, unfortunately, but everything's a few quid now. But I was pleasantly surprised. Got all the nice BMW stuff in it, head-up display. And, you know, real grown-up car.
Do we think we could get to a point where, obviously, Behind the Glass Live 2023, it's going to be 240i owners, not M2 owners?
Probably, because the new M2 is going to be 70 grand.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Maybe the 240i is going to be the steal of the bunch.
I think it, because actually, you know, you talk about 296 and SF90, that 240i is all the car you could ever want, mate. And actually, I know the M2 will be better, of course, but at 70 grand, you know, it wasn't that long ago, Cayman GTSs for 70 grand.
Yeah, insane. It's all the money. I mean, BMW in general, just everything is so expensive.
Yeah.
Do we know M3 touring prices yet? I don't think we do we?
No.
I mean, that's all the money.
That's going to be next year. There'll be 100 grand.
Easy.
And actually, the M3 would have been in my list, but I drove it last year. I didn't drive it this year because that's a very good car as well. And actually, before we wrap up, there is a car that we both drove. Have you got any more now?
I was going to chuck in the A911, the base bog standard 992.
Fair enough.
We've spoken about it so many times before, and we've spoken about GT3s. It feels silly to bang on about it. I think my point was that probably the 992 generation Porsche is a fantastic car. I understand why so many people buy them in the sense where it is more Bentley than any other 911. It's less 911 than any 911, but it's great because of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you've changed your tune.
I've changed my tune
when
massively.
They come out, you said they were terrible and you didn't like them, and now
I never said they were terrible. What I said was that they're too Bentley. They're no longer a sports car; it's a GT car. And I think, you know, I always struggle with change. Long-term views of the channel.
I think it is still a sports car, mate. It's still the best sports car, the 911, in my opinion.
Potentially. I think now it's more usable, more comfortable, more accessible, more everything in its base spec than ever before.
Yeah.
I think it was compromised previously in other generations, where now it really is the everyman sports car for every day.
I agree, but so is everything. The 240 I just mentioned, it's better than the old one. The new Range Rover is better than the old one.
Sure.
The new Bentley is better than the old one. You know, everything gets better. It always gets better, and 911 is an ingredient that they've just made, same as a Golf. You know, they've just made it better every year for 40 or 50 years. So
I was intrigued by what you were about to say, though, because as I say, we banged on about 911s for a lot of this podcast. So go on, what were you about to say?
So there's a car that I know we've both driven, and it's not been mentioned, the Cayman 4RS. GT4 RS.
Well, I purposefully didn't mention it.
Me too.
It's definitely not for me. Not interested.
Yeah, I agree.
So weird that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just left me a bit like, cool. Like, I get it, I appreciate it, just not for me.
I remember as well when you said to me, mate, just let us know what you think, and that's a car for me. That car,
1,000,000%.
That is absolutely. And I remember when they announced that, I was jumping up and down. Oh, I really want one. But the problem is that there's another car that Porsche makes, which is definitely better, and that's the GT3.
Yeah,
it's better. And on the used market, it's cheaper.
Which is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
The 4S just felt too specific for me. Like too much of a toy for one reason. A car for a multi-car garage. You know, I don't see 4RS owners just having a 4RS. No. You know, I think they got multiple cars, and it's a toy for the right road or the right track day. And therefore I get it. Like, sure, like, fine,
no problem.
Yeah. But it surprised me that you were underwhelmed by it and haven't sort of, you know, I think it's a Cayman. It's really hard to look past the fact it's a Cayman, as great as it could be. And I made the point in the main channel video, it's just the same of any of these ilks. Huracan versus Aventador, Roma versus 812. Like, you know, there's always and no matter how special that baby variant is, it's never going to be the Big Daddy.
No.
Which is weird, but
really strange.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because I did actually think of it, but I was like, I'm not going to include it because I didn't.
Me too. Yeah,
didn't fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. You know, we have driven some good cars this year.
Yeah,
and cars that we like. So there you are, old pessimistic Paul. You know, slagging everything off every week, but actually, when you stop and think about it, there have been a lot of cars that you have liked, and a lot of good cars, and a lot of positivity.
Well, there's half a dozen, mate, out of hundreds that I've driven. So it's really.
I was trying to spin it, you know, trying to make this a good news story, but you can just keep slagging things off if you want. Anyway, so yes, as discussed, we are off to LA very soon. We've got one more episode before we go. Then I think it's going to be maybe a month's worth of special LA episodes. We've got people coming on. We've got interviews with special guests. We've got some specific US specials. We're going to be doing recordings there. And I mean, it's going to be a lot. So get ready for that. Behind the Glass takes on America, which we're super excited about. So subscribe and turn on notifications. We do have quite a big announcement coming up. I don't think it's going to, it might be around the time of the LA series. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's essentially going to mean more content, more premium content for you guys. We're excited about it. It's going to be a good way to help push this whole podcast forward. So stay tuned for that. We're just going to tease it for now. If you want to follow Tony, he's at Tony Gravelwood Car Sales on most social media platforms. I'm at Seen Through Glass on most social media platforms. And yes, we'll be back with you for another episode next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.